Hey guys, this is Matt. Welcome back to another RX-7 video. And a couple things since the last video. The air pump on the car is definitely going to be an issue. So I know you can remove it and there's some consequences if you do that on a stock ECU. I think just because in the interim I really don't have any other choice, I'm just going to leave the air pump disconnected and run that for a little while. I've heard different rumors about being able to potentially put some oil or something inside that'll help loosen that clutch or whatever it is it's locking it up. So I think for now, I'll just leave it unplugged, see how it drives. Really, in the future, it'll be removed probably anyway, but until I get some sort of aftermarket ECU, I'm not sure what I'll do with that. I did spend some time during the night when it was dark, messing around with some of the LEDs in the dash, and I concluded that most of the LEDs actually work. Sometimes they need to be flipped 180 degrees because the polarity, I guess, matters on those LEDs. So some of them I just need to flip around and that'll fix that. Some of the smaller ones, they must have a small enough draw even when there's not anything triggering that light that it keeps the light on. So a lot of the ones down at the bottom, like the heat and the seat belt and the parking brake, those I'm just going to switch back over to a standard bulb. And I think one thing I did end up researching is that a lot of the forums say use a number 74 bulb, but I think what you really need to use is an E74. They're just a little bit thinner. They're overall the same wattage and voltage and all that kind of stuff, but the base is actually just a little bit thinner. I think that's why some of the 74 LEDs that I got were tight, trying to plug those into the socket. So I picked up a pack of white E74. They're not long life. If you get long life bulbs, they're going to be a lot dimmer than a standard bulb. And as often as I'm actually going to be driving this car at night, it's not going to be the end of the world. So I will need to get that cluster pulled back off, flip some of those LEDs, and then replace some of the ones that I know aren't going to work as an LED. And so anyway, so I think that'll fix that, and that's good. I thought it was going to be a major problem, or maybe there's a wiring issue, but I think it was just the fact that some of the LEDs need to be switched around. And I'll make like a confirming video or something if you're actually going to do that project yourself, just to kind of go over which ones can be LEDs versus which ones that you probably want to stick with a regular bulb. So I'm actually running out of daylight today, and I've lost like an hour and a half of daylight this time of year until we hit daylight saving time. So I finally got all the paints in that I needed to do the bezel. It's all been sanded down. All my patchwork and stuff for all the holes and cracks has been dried and sanded down. It's glass smooth. And of course you can see a lot of the scratches from the sanding, but I feel like it's 600 grit, so it really shouldn't, the paint should cover that up. I was just gonna paint this black, kind of match the 93, 92 interior finish. But after doing some research online, SEM actually comes with a texturing paint, and it can be applied in different, you basically, the distance that you apply it relative to the plastic will make a different texture. And so considering that the plastic is very lightly dimpled, I'm thinking that this will be a good option. So I'm definitely gonna try it on this. And worst case, if it looks like crap, then I can sand it back down and just paint it. So my process here is I'm gonna wipe it. I'm gonna go get some gloves, wipe all this down really well with alcohol, take it outside, spray it down with some adhesion promoter for plastics. Now the instructions on this don't really tell you to do that, but I've always done that with plastics, so I'm just gonna do it. I normally would just follow what the manufacturer recommends, but they basically just say start with a clean, dry surface. So they don't really address putting any kind of primer on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and prime it. And then the instructions basically say apply 1 to 4 light coats. And again, varying, from 12 to 18 or whatever inches, 24 inches will determine what the texture looks like. So probably on the first coat, I'll probably start at about 20 inches and see how that texture compares to the OEM texture. And then after that, I'll just apply 4 or 5 coats, whatever it takes. And it says the flash time is 5 minutes. So I'll spray this, let it dry for 5 minutes, spray it again, so on and so forth. So after I'm done with that, if I have any daylight left and let this dry, I may go ahead and do some SEM color coat. This is the recommended top coat over the texture coat. And this is just the satin black. I know some people use the Landau black and stuff, but I'm just gonna use satin black. I need to get this wiped down, get it outside, get the adhesion promoter on there. Once that's on there, I'll start with my first couple of coats. And maybe after the first coat, I'll check back in just to show you what that looks like. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and apply the rest of the coats that I need if it looks like it's gonna work. And then I'll check in before we go ahead and spray this with the satin black. So I don't know how well the camera will pick that up, but it looks really good. I'm spraying it about 24 inches. I figured that might give us the best texture, but that actually looks really good. I can't necessarily say it matches the OEM texture because there are a little bit thicker bumps here, but it's not too far off. So that's just one coat, and really when you're spraying it, you want to make sure to spray it off the part that you're spraying, spray across the part before you let go of the button. That way, if you have any clogs or any issues, or you don't, when you stop, just for that brief second, you'll be holding in the same location, which could cause a concentration of paint or something. I made a pass running this direction, and then a light pass running the opposite direction. Now the instructions say let it wait 5 minutes, and I did pick up a little bit of dust right there, which is annoying. So that's what it looks like after one coat of the SEM texture paint. So this is coat number 2, and I mean it's really turning out well. I think the trick is really that it's not going to be smooth. I think that's where people would notice it, but the fact that this does have a fair amount of texture to it already, and I'm comparing it to the center console piece I've got over there, which of course it's been shined up with some Mother's detailer stuff, but this is still needs some more top coats. But I mean, even with where we're at, I'd be happy with stopping there because I think it did provide quite a bit of texture. Now, the can says 1 to 4 light coats. I'm gonna probably go ahead and do a third one just to see how that turns out, and I'll probably stop there. I do need to be careful around where all the dials are at because I can feel that it's kind of building up a texture. I don't wanna make it rough or make too much thickness that the dials have a hard time working. So I'll have to probably be careful, and it may need to be sanded off after the fact. I'm gonna go ahead and get this back outside to get the third coat on, and then after that, I'll bring it back inside and show you how it looks. All right, so 5 minutes later, this is the third coat, and this is where I'm gonna stop. I think that texture is gonna be enough that it's not gonna be super noticeable. I think what would be more noticeable is if, the black is off in tone or the sheen or something, but that texture is certainly good enough for me, and certainly this piece looks way better than it did before we started. And of course that texture is gonna hide any of the blemishes that we, I know I took care of them by filling them and sanding them out, but if there was anything left, it certainly is covered up now. I think someone online explained it best. It's about a 60 grit, maybe an 80 grit sandpaper is kind of what it feels like. I mean, that's not that, like it's not gonna, just that texture. I really hope the camera can pick that up and just see the texture. And again, that's 3 light coats, making a pass in each direction. Really, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and apply the top coat, but I did run out of daylight. So what I'll probably do is just let this dry overnight and then come back tomorrow when I've got more daylight and apply the top coats. It's pretty close. I would say that this has a little bit finer of a texture than the OEM finish, but like I said, the untrained eye is not really gonna notice that right off the bat. So anyway, that's really cool, and anybody that has the early 92, 93 plastics, it definitely gives you another option instead of going out and buying all new trim. So I figure while the paint is drying on that piece of trim, I should probably go ahead and start cleaning up these seats. So they've basically been sitting in my house for like the last year. One seat, which is over there, is basically fully assembled. It just needs a really good cleaning. This one, I basically got all the various parts. So I got the seat by itself. I had to buy the rails by themselves and all the trim. And I have lots of new OEM fasteners and trim pieces. I'm not gonna go into too much detail because I don't know how many people are really ever gonna have this issue. Basically, your seats are probably gonna be complete when you get them. So in my case, they're not. So I had to track down all the parts, which actually ended up being a pretty decent expense to get all the various pieces. I think, if you figured, let's call it $100, $150 for the seat without all these pieces, and then like $100 for the rails, and then, various other pieces, I'm still probably, I would guess, somewhere in the $300 maybe-ish range just for this used seat. And it is leather. And this one came from a US left-hand drive car, and it does show some signs of wear, but luckily this will be my passenger seat, so it's fine. And the passenger seat that I got from the left-hand drive car will be my driver's seat, and it's in really good shape. And again, just needs a good cleaning. Really nothing exciting to show you. I just need to get all this put back together. Luckily, I have at least one complete seat to compare as I get all these parts together. I did salvage the seat belt that was from the seats that were already in the car. I'll probably just turn the camera off and get to cleaning these up. And if I find anything exciting to show you guys, I'll check back in. Otherwise, the next time you see me, hopefully the seats are already cleaned and assembled. Once that trim around the radio is painted, then that can go back in the car. And then of course I've got the door cards and the radio to install. I can still drive the car without doing those things, but you know, I need to get the seat in, and then I can get you know, the rest of that center console buttoned up, and she should be ready for her first drive in almost 4 months. So I spent the other night getting the rest of the seats put together and cleaned up, and I'm really happy with the shape that they're in. I believe these came from 2 different cars because the stitching is just a little bit different from one to the other, and I even feel like the material is just a little bit different. I think it's very subtle, but after cleaning them, I realized that they're just 2 different seats that were made at 2 different points in time. But they're now complete. They're ready to go back in the car. The one thing that I do need to address eventually is the seatbelt strap is originally black, and this one has been faded by the sun. So if you can see down in there that it was black. So I'll just need to get some dye and dye that black, and it'll look, you know, basically like brand new again. They are complete. I did condition them. These are all done. So now we can get back to finishing up the bezel for the radio and the air conditioning. Hopefully I got decent pictures to kind of convey the texture before and after all of my different steps. So this is well, I'm going to call the final condition of the panel. And this is after, I believe, 3 or 4 coats. This has been, you know, I had the texture coat applied, and then I came back with, I think it was 4 coats of the satin black. This is how it turned out. Now, it won't be exactly this shiny. I did come in with a little bit of interior cleaner and the Back to Black product just to see if I could match the sheen of some of the other trim that I had done, and it's pretty close. It's not exact, but it's pretty close. So I figured I'd just go ahead and pull the center console trim back over here so that you can kind of get a comparison. So I would say the texture with the texture coating is pretty close. This feels a little bit smoother. This does have a little bit more texture, maybe a little bit finer texture. So it may take playing with the you know, the height at which you spray that texture coating to get exact match. But for me, I think that's going to be relatively close. And these will butt up together in the car, but they're kind of 2 different planes, so the light's never really going to hit off them the same way. But as you can see, the color is pretty accurate. It's just the sheen is a little bit different. I did go ahead and pop in the little faces and just press them back into place. I didn't really glue them because I think they'll be held down pretty well once all the rest of the screws are installed. Let me get this stuff out of the way, and I'll go over some of the other little things that I've done so that we can get this installed back in the car. I'd say the only thing that's worth mentioning about this is the lights. So I did go ahead and swap out all the lights with LEDs. That includes the 4 here, and then there's pretty much 1 in each of the, you know, different buttons that go in the car. So all those got replaced with LEDs. After my experience with the gauge cluster and how some of the lights work and some of the lights didn't work, I went ahead and plugged this into the car before I assembled anything. I'm glad I did that because the LED lights have to be installed one way. They can't be just insert and they work like a traditional bulb. If you put them in and it doesn't work, it means you got to flip it 180 degrees. So with this plugged back in the car, I powered on the car and turned the lights on, and I was able to go around and make sure all the lights were working. So for these 74 size LED bulbs, it's pretty simple. You just flip them. For any of the Neo 3 or any of these round, these special ones, you might just have to keep spinning it until it engages at the right polarization. So these all work, and when it's dark out, I'll definitely show you guys how all this looks. But again, I just went with white for the most part, except for I did put a red bulb in the caution button, and I put a blue bulb, I think it was a blue bulb in the AC. Now that I'm comfortable that all the lights are going to be fine, I can go ahead and get all this reassembled. So it's pretty straightforward. I need to get all this back into this back housing, and then everything just kind of bolts in to the back of the gauge cluster. I'll film a little bit of it just so you guys get the idea, and I'll check back in when it's fully assembled. I have the whole thing back together. The dimmer switch is still in the car where I've been testing the lights, so I'll just pop that back in when we install this panel. There's several locations on this trim where there's like a felt tape, and I'm guessing that's just to help with rattling and squeaking and make a little bit of a tighter fit on the trim. Most of mine is intact. There's a couple pieces back here that have kind of started to fall off. I don't really have a felt tape. I do have you know, various Tesa tapes and things. I could try to maybe put a little piece in there. I don't know if this is factory or what this is. This is like a thick electrical tape. So I'll probably just go ahead and replace this with some of the high temperature tape that I've got. Last thing I need to do is get a zip tie to secure that down. Then I can go ahead and pop in all the dials, and this is ready to go back in the car. Here she is, all complete. I was kind of afraid that the dials would, you know, the thickness that texture material added would cause the dials to make contact. I just checked them all and they seem to be smooth. I don't feel any kind of grinding or any kind of contact. Anyway, like I said, other than the dimmer switch, this can go back in the car. And just for the record, you know, this is what this used to look like. So this is that early kind of smooth plastic that gets scratched and looks real dingy. I mean, this is what this looked like. So I can't say enough good things about these SEM products. This texture coating, I think playing with the distance that you spray it, I think you'd get the feel for how, you know, if you wanted to make that texture perfect, you would just have to play with the distance a little bit and figure out. But I think it's really close, and most people probably aren't even going to notice. You know, after I did that, you know, this satin black SEM, like I said, if you were doing all the trim in your car at once, it wouldn't really matter because everything would end up being the same. But in my case, where I just did this one panel, it will be somewhat of the oddball just because this isn't a perfect match. The OEM plastics with the texture are a little bit smoother, and they do have a little bit more, you can get them a little more shiny. And maybe if I had applied a different coating of polish or something on this, and it would have got closer. But again, it's going to be close enough for me, and this looks brand new. So I really can't complain at all about this. And like I said, we got the tabs repaired, so everything should be able to mount in and be nice and secure. I did start looking at the door panels, and there is some trim on the door panels that's going to have to get repaired, kind of like this this little maplet or whatever they call it. I probably won't do the texture coating just because the surfaces on the door are going to be, I'm going to be grabbing on them, and there'll be more contact and more likely of a chance that those will get dirty. I think doing just the smooth finish will be something that is easier to keep clean. So I'm not going to do this texture finish on anything else, I don't think. For everything else, I'll probably just do the satin black on the little trim pieces that I have left. Whether you have an FD or any other car that requires textured trim, I definitely would look into this if this is something that you need to do. Again, I probably paid 20 some bucks, you know, 20, 25 bucks for this, maybe 13, 14 bucks for that. So there is a cost associated with this, but considering that most of these trim pieces, you know, just this panel would have cost me somewhere around $100, $150. So I certainly saved that much money fixing this and repairing this myself, and honestly it looks awesome. I mean, I don't see any of the repair work that I had to do, and like I said, the texture is close enough that I think most people aren't even going to notice that there might be a difference. I have no idea where this video has been because I've been filming so many different things over the last few days, but if this happens to be the end of the video, thank you guys for watching, and if you like this content, please consider subscribing and smash that like button, and I'm going to see you guys next time.